on the third page of the Maimer, and we were speaking about Pekudei HaMishkan that is going on Vav K, that's going on the Midos. Vav K is Niglois, revealed, and Yud K, that's the level of Mishkan Ha'edus, the second thing that it says in the Pasuk. And we started using it to differentiate between Midos and Moichin, the intellect and the emotions. And this distinction between the intellect and the emotions is something that is embedded in the concept of Yud K versus Vav K. So we were holding move explaining about how Midos is something that needs to have a Zulas, emotions is something for another. Now we're going to be speaking about, in the beginning of Vayis Daled, how intellect is about themselves. Just like by Midas. Also, the Midas themselves is connected to another. In other words, not just the function of the Midos, that when he actually does a Midah, when he's actually acting upon the Midah, so then he needs to have another person to act out his chesed, for example. But even the way it is in the person's heart itself, it is about another person. It's about another, and that's why you can have, let's say, the idea of chesed and love and so on. Similar to this, it's on the other hand concerning the intellect. In other words, totally the other extreme. The fact that the intellect is something focused on oneself beyond any connection with another. It's not only concerning the intellect itself. The inyan haseichel that the entire idea of intellect, as we're soon going to explain, is for himself. It's not like the emotions. That idea of the emotions. Even the midas, the way they are themselves in the heart, before he affects and does and upon the midah, is to do to another. So not just when the intellect is like within the person, it is completely reserved and it's only focused inward. Even when he's actuating the intellect, even when he's thinking ideas, he does not need another. And as we'll soon explain, another can sometimes even interfere. He needs privacy. He needs to be secluded. Even when a person is alone without another, he can come up and understand ideas. The Rebbe is going to challenge this, and that's what we find, that we know that if you are mashpia to another, if you give over an idea to someone else, then it actually causes an increase and a growth in the concept and in the idea. Like the Chazal say, that there was someone that said that I received a lot from my Rebbes, more from my colleagues, and even more than everyone I received from my students. So what do you see from here? That it's not that the other is somehow interfering with intellect or somehow contradictory to intellect, and intellect is only about being alone. It seems to cause an increase in intellect when you do share it with someone else. So the Rebbe explains that is only talking about an increase. This is only concerning the increase in the intellect that was already created and he came up with. But the very idea itself, just the action of coming up and developing an idea, it's possible to be even without another there. Even when there's no one to whom to give over the idea to, he could come up with great and very deep ideas. And then what I mentioned before, even more so, just the opposite. They love to be able to arrive at an idea and to understand it thoroughly. Sometimes another could disturb. Therefore, the Rebbe uses an expression, most sages, wise people, were people that kept away from others, because for their ideas to be able to flourish and to be able to expand and so on, other people would interfere in that process. We find similar to this in the Maimer Chazal, that the Sanhedrin would discuss a case, or not discuss, put that aside, would evaluate a case, go back and forth on a case the entire night. So Rashi explains, what's it mean that they did so by night? What's the significance of nighttime? Finish Rashi explains, ish la'atzmai, every person on his own. Why? Why wasn't it a public discussion, a public forum? Because to be able to arrive at the true understanding, the true reasoning, it's when a person does so on his own, analyzing it on their own. And the footnote 29 brings out this point more in detail, that initially they would have a roundtable discussion. They would have a discussion throughout the day, at least broken off into pairs. And then by night, when nighttime came, that was more time for solitude, and everyone did it on their own. Then the Rebbe says, "V'gam lepirish Rambam," even according to what the Rambam explains, that every person of the Sanhedrin had a partner, that by night they used to be either by themselves or they would do it with a partner. So the Rambam does allow for the Sanhedrin being able to develop something, an idea, while discussing it with someone else. Still, in all, it's with their partner and not everybody together, which indicates this type of idea that it's necessary and important for the development of intellect to be as much as possible inward focused, not about the other. Any questions before we go on to Oisei? Okay. Top of the fourth page of the Maimer, Oisei. This is the reason that we said before, corresponding to the Yud-K and the Vav-K. The Vav-K is Vehan Niglois, Vav-K is revealed, and Yud-K, which is the Moichin, the intellect, is concealed. Midas, since the Midas idea is to be mashpia to another, they're in the state of revelation. But in actuality, while the Midah is, let's say, he has the emotion of kindness, he wants to do kindnesses in the heart, that's all fine and good, but it's still in the heart. Didn't yet express itself outward. But intellect, since intellect is it's focused inward, focused on himself, beyond any connection with another. Even when he reveals an idea of his to another, it's still in a state of concealment. What does it mean it's still in a state of concealment? So he says, there are 2 points and 2 aspects of this concealment of the intellect that is retained even once he reveals the intellect to another. The seichel, first of all, is that the intellect, the idea, the way it becomes revealed to another, it's not of the same caliber and the same level of the idea, the way the person understood it himself. The Rebbe says parenthetically, like it's explained in many places, the coming down and the transmitting of an idea to another, it needs to go through the level of the emotions, meaning it needs to now be in a way changed and different than the intellect is on its own. So it's not the very same idea that the person understood initially. That's not the exact same thing that's being transmitted to the other. V'nimtza comes out, she'etzem ha'seichel k'moshu ba'asmi nisher b'hel, comes out, and this is the essence of the idea, the way it is within the person himself, the way he first perceived it, always remains concealed. It never comes out. That is one component of what we said before, that the seichel, even when he reveals it to another, remains concealed. Another concept in that, so he says, even that aspect, that component of the idea, that does become revealed to another, the fact that the idea is becoming revealed to another, it's not because in this level of seichel, it's about being revealed to another. Seichel is always removed from the idea of the other. Because the general idea of intellect, even that level of seichel that becomes revealed to another, is something that is for the person themselves. He's like sharing with the other person himself. It's not that this is something that like belongs to the other. When I share an idea with someone else, even though it's a watered down level of my idea, but it's still, I'm sharing myself. I'm sharing something inward. I'm sharing something that's not really about the other. Now the Rebbe adds, there is the other, where we're talking about literally another person, I and someone else, but then within the person themselves, there is the internal other. And even in the internal other, intellect remains removed from that. Second paragraph in Hoysef in the ad, the fact that intellect is beyond any association with another. The intention in this is not just the other that's outside of the person, literally another person, even concerning matters within the person itself, that those matters and those aspects of the person are considered other in regard to intellect. So intellect remains really removed from that. Therefore, they love for a person to really comprehend an idea, the person needs to constrict and conceal and hide away all of his powers. Also, the will to understand the idea. If the person is too busy being excited, I really want to understand this, I really want to understand this, I really want to understand it, that wanting and that excitement and that passion, that will actually undermine the idea, undermine his capability to deal with the idea, because there can't be any interference. The person needs to be totally focused within the world of ideas, not even to the degree that he wants to understand the idea. Complete focus on the idea itself. Since all these other soul powers are considered an other, an internal other, in comparison to the idea, they are disturbing the understanding of the idea, just like someone outside of the person, we said, can interfere and disturb the person understanding ideas. Same thing, the zulas inside the person can also disrupt that. Then he says, so, and the result of this as well, when he already understands the idea, now the transmission, even within the person themselves, needs to go through a whole process, because ideas are far into the other within the person themselves. Similar to this, on the other hand, even when he understands the idea, the comprehension is at a distance and separated from other matters and other powers that are within the person himself. Till it's possible that the comprehension will not affect the person, meaning that I can understand something and it has no application in my life. I do not bring it down into anything. It's not only that the idea may be theoretical, the idea may be practical, But just because it's practical doesn't mean that it's going to impact. Then the Rebbe says, the fact that the comprehension of the idea it brings down in general to emotions in the heart and even to action. God will tell me the greatness of studies that brings to action. So we know that idea is about coming down to the world of action, and it does manifest itself in the world of action. It's not because the idea of seichel is to affect in the emotions and actions. Ella, seichel is like light. Light goes everywhere, but it's not about the place where it's coming to. It's not about impressing itself on the place. Sunlight. The sun has no desire and has no interest to shine in every nook and cranny, but that's the nature of light. Wherever there's nothing blocking it, the light will come in. So then move on, so this is understood. The effect of intellect on all the powers and all the matters that are in a person, ein misgala in yonishal seichel. So the very nature of intellect itself remains concealed. It doesn't become revealed. Just like by another person, we said that the very aspect of the idea, even when he reveals it to another person, the very core remains concealed. Well, Pizi Yeshleimer, according to this, we can say, is the fact that we call moich concealed, they are concealed also from those matters and powers that are within the person himself. Any questions?
What's the source for these ideas? Is this from the Gemara somewhere? Or?
So if you will see the footnotes, a lot of these are discussed at length in Mamarim of the Rebbe Rashab, primarily from Tafresh Samach Vav. Over there, the Rebbe Rashab goes into much more detail with much more elaboration about how Seichel works and examples of it and so on.
Because it seems almost like psychology at a deep level.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that Chassidus is really a lot about the internal psychology of the soul. Okay, Oizvav. So now we're going to connect all of this with the two parts of the pasuk. The twice that says Mishkan, the second time it says Mishkan Ha'edus. All it is it reflects these two ideas that we said now about Seichel and Midas. Oizvav, bottom of the fourth page of the Maim. So Mishkan Ha'edus. These are the numbers of the Mishkan. The Mishkan of testimony that was counted according to by Moshe. Mishkan Stam, the first time it says Mishkan, who avoidus halev. That is the service of the heart, like we introduced initially. That there's the two ways of looking at it: is avoidus ha-Mishkan, is the avoid of the or the avoid of the heart versus the avoid of the mind, revealed versus concealed, Vavke versus Yudke. The first time it says ha-Mishkan, with the hey being the definitive article, the Mishkan. When you say the Mishkan, that means, like it says, hey idea means it's a known thing. It's something that's known. Because midas are revealed, so therefore they're known. Midas shebelev him b'chinas gilui, the midas of the heart, they're in a state of revelation. Mishkan ha'edus, the second time where it says Mishkan, and it adds the appellation, it says ha'edus, inyan ha'edus ha'al-davar an the idea of testimony is only on something that's concealed. When do you have the testimony of witnesses? The testimony of witnesses is only necessary by something that is concealed, that's not known. So you need to bring testimony and attest to it that you know that it does exist such a thing. So the very fact that we say Mishkan Ha'edus, that means it's something concealed. What is concealed? Top of the next page. It's the service of the brain. Because the level of intellect is a level of concealment. Then he goes on to say, in the brackets, to add Moichin Atzmam in the intellect itself, Ikara in the Mishkan Ha'edus, the primary idea of the second thing that it says, the Mishkan of testimony. The testimony applies. Witnesses applies by something that's concealed. What primis hamoichin is in the inner level of intellect. Is the beyond connection with the emotions. In intellect itself, brought down in many places of Chassidus, there's the core level of intellect, and there's the intellect that has to do with bringing about emotions. So of these two levels of intellect, primarily, Mishkan HaEdus applies to the higher level of intellect. In Mishkan HaEdus, what's the idea of the Mishkan of testimony? It's not just the Moichin itself remaining concealed. True, the Moichin is concealed, but we want it to be a Mishkan. It should come to reside, it should become revealed. The comprehension and godliness, including also the comprehension of the inner level of intellect. That's totally removed from the world of emotions, like we said in the previous brackets. Becomes completely joined with the person that comprehends it. Until his entire being is that it is the Mishkan of testimony. Mishkan it is a place that Hashem rests. It's a place that is accepting and receiving the godly light that shines in the intellect, that godly light is higher than the godly light that shines in the emotions. That is why, where does it say the words that Moshe Rabbeinu was involved in it? By the second Mishkan, by the Mishkan HaEdus. Because it's such a high level, we need Moshe's intervention to bring it down. So the person should be able to be a residence for this light. Through the level of Moshe in every single Yid. And the pasuk does not leave its simple meaning that that where it says that it was counted according to Moshe is referring also to where it says these are the numbers of the Mishkan. The first part of it, like we said, Kanal Sifal, we said in the beginning of the Ois, that in the beginning of the Maimer, that I should put it up in Moshe goes on what El B'Kudei Mishkan is. And Mishkan HaEdus is only a description of the Mishkan that it says earlier. So how does the Moshe's intervention and involvement reflect back on what it says earlier on Elep Kudei HaMishkan, in even the level of Mishkan, the way it's a revealed Mishkan, Hayayadiyah, the level of Midas? Why is there Moshe's intervention necessary? The idea avoided the Mishkan HaEdus Moichin through the avodah of Mishkan HaEdus, which involves intellect, Gam HaMidas, also the emotional attributes, also the character traits, and so on, Mishkan Stam, which is hinted in the first part of the pasuk where it says Mishkan alone. And Ba'ofen Acher is an entirely different type of emotions. In other words, the work with the intellect impacts the work with the emotion. Like we explained previously on the previous page, since the intellect is like light that shines all over, so then when the midas are now receiving from that light, so the midas are of a totally different caliber than if they wouldn't have received it. So that's why the Asher Pukat al Pi Moshe has an impact also on Mishkan, on the midas, because what Moshe Rabbeinu does and affects, impacts not just the intellect, but by extension as well the midas. So Moshe's involvement, the Moshe of each and every Yid, gives that capability that he should be able to have within him the revelation and the setting down of the light of the intellect. And then that light of the intellect that comes down is also something that impacts also the emotions as well. Any questions?
Isn't this the core philosophy of Chabad and the differentiation with other Hasidic thought?
Differentiation of what?
Of Chabad from other Hasidim.
The what? That the focus
this intent, the intense focus on the intellect coming into the emotions.
Yes, that's a core idea. It's not just about the externals and serving Hashem with our external organs, but it should be permeating. This was also part of, in a way, yesterday's chitas, yesterday's Tanya. I may digress a little bit. The Alter Rebbe says over there that a person should be able to get truly to the idea of simcha. Be able to get truly to the idea of simcha. Another way to get there is by thinking into what he speaks about over there, how Hashem is always with him, and so on. There are ways of being besimcha, like other chassidim are besimcha, not Chabad chassidim. It's not done through the tools of meditation. It's done, let's just jump up and down. Let's just dance, which is also important. I'm not knocking it. But over there, it's not something that is be'amitis. Alter Rebbe right away starts off the chapter with saying to be able to come to simcha in a true fashion. True means it's thorough. It's real to me. Not just I'm acting that way, which is a theme throughout Tanya, like we've spoken about many times. Or at least mentioned a few times. To be able to truly have that, in other words, like we said over here, Mishkan, it should really become part of me. It should rest within me, that joy should become part of me. How does that happen? That happens when I have the idea of the Hizbonenus, the Chabad. The intellect is something that impacts and causes that the joy should be Ba'amitis. That is the function. That's why such a big emphasis in Chabad about using the intellect. Because the Alter Rebbe throughout L'Chutei Amorim is always about this idea about that it should be a true experience. Someone should be truly humble. Someone should be truly besimcha. Someone should be truly serving Hashem with his entire heart and his entire being. All of this comes about only through Chabad, only with the meditation. All the other ways are the fake it aspect, but you have to have the fake it till you make it. And that really making it comes about through meditation. And the tools for that is Chassidus Chabad. And the tools for that, he right away starts off in Tanya about
it. Moshe would be, in this vein, would be what the Rebbe does.
Yeah, the Rebbe is out to evoke that within us, to be able to bring that out revealed within us. I just wanted to add something over here from a footnote. The Rebbe says in note 41 that it says, Yoshe b'seiser elyon b'tzel shindal yudis, that he sits in the concealment upon high, in the shadow of Shindal Yud, he stays over there. So it's explained that by Tzemach Tzedek, Seiser Elyon is the union of Chachma Bina, Yichud Avah. That's the level of Mishkan HaEdus. Mishkan HaEdus is the level of intellect, like we said before, Chachma Bina. Well, but Seil Shindal Yud, that has to do with the Yichud of Zun, of Zah and Nukva, the Midas and Malchus. That's Pekudei and Mishkan. Then it says in a mimer that was in the very same year that this mimer was originally said, but later on, that the connection is that it's not two separate things. Yoshe b'Seiser Elyon, he has the unity in Moichin, and he has the unity in the Midas, but the unity of a Moichin has to impact and bring down the Midas as well. Yoshe b'Seiser Elyon causes and impacts also the unity of the Tzel Shindal Yud. Okay, we'll stop over here. It'd be good news this month. It'd be a joyous month, even more joyous than the previous month, in all ways possible, and all brachas for all Yidden, especially those Yidden that need help wherever they are.